You sent over some really fascinating stuff recently exploring the power of imagination. And it really hints that it's, well, maybe more than just, a mental playground.
Yeah, definitely more. Some of these ideas suggest our imagination actually shapes reality, actively shapes it.
Which is a pretty wild thought.
It is. And to really get into that, we should probably dive into this lecture by Neville Goddard. It's called Persistent Assumption.
Right. From 60, you said?
March 18th, 1968. Yeah. And look, this isn't your usual self-help kind of thing. Goddard has this very specific, pretty radical take on what imagination is and, how it really works in our lives.
Exactly. We've got the transcript, and it really lays out his view on, well, God, us, our own potential. It's quite something.
It is.
So for everyone listening, our goal here in this deep dive is to really unpack this persistent assumption idea. Like, what do you mean? How does it work?
How does it connect to getting what you want or becoming who you want to be?
Yeah, and maybe uncover some, I don't know, surprising things about ourselves along the way.
Yeah.
It kicks off with a pretty bold statement, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Right away, he just drops this. There is nothing greater than your own wonderful human imagination.
Wow. Just let that sink in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's unpack that. He goes further, right?
Yeah.
He basically equates our imagination with the one spirit in the universe.
Exactly. He even brings in, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." But for Goddard, that one, that ultimate power,
It's us, our imagination.
that's his point. It's our own imagination.
Okay, and then he brings in William Blake. How does that fit?
Well, he interprets Blake's line, "Christ is the only God, but so am I and so are you," as proof
Proof that.
that we shouldn't see ourselves as separate or, less powerful than whatever we think of as divine. It's a big shift.
Definitely challenges the usual thinking. So Goddard is essentially daring us then to assume anything is possible.
Dare to assume that all things are possible to imagine. That's his challenge. Persistently imagine being the person you want to be.
Even if everything around you, your current reality, screams no.
Especially then. And he makes a pretty big promise about that persistence.
Oh, he is.
That it will lead to realization. If you hold on to that assumption, really feel it, it has to become your objective reality. He kind of suggests we are that creative power, just maybe operating on low power.
Right, like we've limited ourselves somehow, and that's why the persistence is so key.
Exactly, it's central. And he uses that story from Luke, the guy banging on the door at midnight for bread.
Oh yeah, for his friend who just showed up.
Right, and Goddard zooms in on that word, importunity.
Sounds a bit old-fashioned.
It does, but his take is interesting. He says it means brazen impudence.
Brazen impudence, so
Like not just asking politely, but this determined refusal to take no for an answer. Not when it comes to what you deeply need or desire.
So in the realm of your own mind, your imagination, you just don't accept refusal.
Precisely. Because in his view, you're not asking some other power out there. You're engaging your own self, your imagination. You are the power.
Okay, so any feeling of lack or denial that comes from within us, our own beliefs.
That's what he posits, yeah. So the persistence he talks about, it's about maintaining that conviction inside yourself, unwavering.
It's an internal battle almost.
Or an internal alignment, maybe. And zooming out, he says, the genius of Blake or Shakespeare or Einstein, it wasn't some special outside force.
It's the same imagination we all have.
The exact same one human imagination. Yeah. He even tells this story about a friend having a vision where Goddard himself apparently said, the story of Jesus is persistent assumption.
Whoa. Okay, so following Jesus for Goddard means persistently assuming.
Persistently assuming the reality you want until it just is. Until it hardens into fact, as he might say.
Which leads to that really provocative question he asks.
If I am one with everyone, how can anyone be greater than I?
Right. He's really pushing back against the idea that some people are just, more connected or more divinely inspired than others.
Totally. Which brings us neatly to belief, right? He talks about that verse, unless you believe that I am he, you will die in your sins.
But his interpretation of he is different.
Very different. He says he is the human imagination.
Your own imagination.
Oh.
So the belief isn't in something external. It's believing in your imagination as the power.
Exactly. And believing now. Believing that you already are what you want to be. Present tense, not wishing for it later.
If you don't see your imagination as that power, you end up, what did he say? Worshipping a god on the outside.
Yeah, instead of recognizing the God within.
Okay. He also brings up Elohim, doesn't he? To explain the unity idea.
Right. He describes it as a compound unity of one made up of others, like a single entity composed of many parts.
So we might seem separate, fragmented.
But underneath, we're all expressions of this one imagination. One being, he says we're currently keyed low.
Keyed low, like a musical note.
Kind of, yeah, like we're vibrating at a lower frequency, a limited expression of what we truly are.
And the way to raise that key, to unlock the potential, is
The act of assumption. Just deciding to be and feeling yourself to be something more. He even quotes Blake again here.
which one?
If the fool will persist in his folly, he will become wise.
Linking persistence in an assumption, even if it seems foolish, to eventual realization.
Exactly. He contrasts someone maybe accidentally imagining wealth unconsciously versus someone deliberately assuming the feeling of being wealthy.
But the power behind it is the same.
The same creative force, imagination. It creates the poverty and the wealth, the sickness and the health. It depends on our assumptions, conscious or not.
This feels like a good point to talk about the sun concept he introduces.
It's a bit complex, but he says this one God, imagination, has only one sun, and you recognize this sun when your own imagination awakens.
And that awakening leads to realizing you're the Father.
Essentially, yes. The individual realizes they're God the Father. It sounds paradoxical, I know.
A little. He uses the metaphor of a play, right?
Yeah, like the whole world is a stage, and divine imagination is playing all the parts, all these different human lives.
But eventually, everyone recognizes the same sun.
That's the idea, and that shared recognition proves the underlying oneness of the imagination, the one God.
And the point of this whole play, this fragmentation.
Expansion. To expand imagination's creative power through all these experiences, before eventually gathering back into the one source.
So practically speaking, what does he tell people to do for us listening now?
He really urges active use. Constantly use your imagination. Test it. Prove its power to yourself.
How? What's the method?
Well, one concrete way is to vividly imagine your desire is already done. It's an accomplished fact.
Okay.
And then pay attention to the details in that imagined scene. How are you interacting with people? How do they react to you? Is there joy? Maybe envy from others? Feel those emotions.
And the key is, don't just do it once.
No, persist.
Yeah.
Live in that imagined reality. Feel it as real until your outer world catches up. Until it becomes objectively real.
He uses that analogy, too, about giving a gift.
Right. If you try to give a gift and it's refused, where does it end up?
Back with you, the giver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he says it's like that with imagination. Ultimately, you're doing it all within yourself. There is no one to give to but yourself. There is only God whose name is I am.
Wow. So it all comes back to that internal power source. He brings up Deuteronomy again there, too, right?
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Always reinforcing that oneness, that internal locus of power.
So this also challenges where we think inspiration comes from, like for writing or art or solving problems.
Totally. He argues against the idea of some external muse or spiritual download. He says it all comes from the depths of his own soul.
Which is imagination again.
Which is imagination. Yeah, the source is within you.
That's incredibly empowering. The idea that there's no being fundamentally greater than yourself in terms of creative ability.
It really is. He points to the Psalms, commune with your own self. That quiet reflection, he suggests, is how you tap into God within and let the ideas flow.
Okay, let's touch on the fall and return idea he mentioned. Humanity was one with God, then fell into division.
That's his view. Initially unified, then a deliberate fall into division, not as a mistake, but to allow God's creative power to expand through individual experience.
And the goal is an eventual return, regathering.
Yes, reintegration into that oneness, but enriched by the experiences of individuality. He even described a personal vision he had.
The rock.
Yeah, seeing this infinite being like a rock that shattered into countless pieces humans and then slowly reformed into a single meditating figure, which he recognized as himself.
Intense. So the being within each of us is a piece of that original whole.
A fragment of the one perfect being that deliberately fragmented itself.
Which brings us to another practical technique, using that state just before sleep.
That's a key time for him. He says basically, assume I am, whatever it is you desire to be, until that which I have assumed is objectively realized, and then drift off to sleep in that feeling.
Why then? What's special about sleep?
He says God the Father is dreaming in the depth of your soul during sleep. That deeper level of consciousness takes your assumption and works to bring it forth.
And you could do this for others too. Assume good things for loved ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Assume the desired state for yourself, for others, but the crucial part is you have to believe in the reality of that assumption for it to express itself. Truly believe.
Which ties into his warning about false gods.
Right. Believing someone else is inherently superior or holds the key for you, that's creating a false god outside yourself.
Instead, the belief has to be internal. You must believe in yourself.
Or die in your sins. Pretty stark. His core message is just so radical. God actually became you that you may become God.
Wow. Just sit with that. It's the difference between saying with conviction, I am what I want to be, versus
That frustrated feeling of, oh, I wish I were. That wishing keeps it distant. The assumption brings it present.
So when we look at giants like Shakespeare or Blake or Einstein,
Hmm.
their genius wasn't different in kind.
Not according to Goddard. Acknowledges their greatness, of course, but says their imagination isn't inherently superior to yours or mine. It's the same source.
The same one grand divine imagination.
Exactly. Their incredible work came from within them, from their own awakening imagination, not from somewhere else.
So the invitation then is to try and capture that feeling, the feeling of being that one spirit.
Yeah, feel it. And maybe even try falling asleep in that feeling of being one with God, with that creative power. He hints that dreams might even reflect that deeper level.
What about people seeming to wake up to this before others? Is there a hierarchy?
He says no, not really. There's no actual first. Everyone's moving towards that realization in their own way, on their own path.
And the end point is a joyful reunion.
A reunification into the one body, the one spirit, the one Lord, the one God and Father of all. That's the ultimate destiny he sees.
Okay, so on a practical level again, if someone we care about is struggling, but maybe doesn't buy into these ideas, what can we do?
He advises using your own assumption to cushion them. Imagine lovingly for them. Assume the best for them, even if they don't believe it themselves.
So our internal state can influence their well-being?
In his model, yes. Though he also notes that external help is temporary. Ultimately, each person's own inner being, their imagination, guides their path for their own awakening.
And wrapping it all up, he says, our awareness, that's the cause.
Your awareness is the cause of everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen to you. That's a huge statement of personal responsibility and potential.
Yeah, realizing you're the creator of the good and the bad through your own state of being, that's transformative.
Immensely.
Okay, so boiling it all down from this deep dive into Goddard's persistent assumption, the key really is that unwavering persistence, isn't it?
Absolutely. Persistently assuming your desire is real because you understand that your imagination is the creative power, the God power, and it's not separate from you. You are it.
You are one with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves a big question for everyone listening, I guess.
Definitely. If your imagination really has this power, what's one assumption you're going to choose right now to persistently embody?
Not just wish for, but live from, as if it's already done.
Exactly, as an already accomplished fact in your inner world.
It's powerful stuff. We really encourage everyone to maybe read the lecture or other Goddard works, see how it resonates.
Yeah, reflect on your own life through this lens. It might just shift things.
It really might. Thanks for digging into this with us today.